welcome to Sao Paulo for round 4 of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship.
That is right, Alexa. We're back at the Sambadrome. Never doing that again.
Please,
apologise for doing that. We know that this circuit provides good racing action. Last year was incredible, but something tells me it's not going to be the same story this time round.
Okay.
We saw a Jaguar masterclass of dominance last season, but I don't think it's going to be as easy for them. I went a bit early with the analytical.
It's all right. But before we do go on analysis,
okay,
let's take a look at what we have coming up in the show today.
Good idea. Katy Fairman, championship journalist, is joining us once again, who sat down with Pascal Wehrlein to talk about that incredible overtaking performance from last season.
And of course, we have to take a little bit more of an in-depth look at what this track has in store for our drivers this weekend. So we spoke to Tom Brooks.
Yep, and we also talked to the Formula E drivers about what it's like racing here in Sao Paulo in front of the motorsport mad Brazilian fans.
But before all of that, how about we take a little look at what's happened in this season so far?
I think that's a great idea. Good idea. Here's something we prepared earlier.
Action. Side by side he goes. Drama. Makes it stick. Elation. Yes! And heartbreak. Season 10 has had it all already. 7 different drivers on the podium in just 3 races as Formula E harks back to its unpredictable ways. For some, it's been picking up where they left off. For others, it's been huge leaps forward. Here's a look back at the story so far. The season opener in Mexico, in front of a packed crowd, brought with it Pascal Wehrlein's 4th podium and 2nd win on Mexican soil. The former championship contender had a near-perfect day, securing pole position and a lights-to-flag victory. The perfect way for Tag Heuer Porsche to kick off their season and their fight for not just the title, but also to reclaim the bragging rights over customer team Andretti, who bettered them in both the drivers' and teams' World Championships last season. Jaguar Power secured the other 2 spots on the podium, with Envision driver and Formula E veteran Sebastian Buemi finishing 2nd. And last season's championship runner-up Nick Cassidy starting life at Jaguar TCS Racing off very well, finishing 3rd. A performance that would set the tone for the next few races for the Kiwi driver, and it wouldn't be the last we'd see of Nick Cassidy on the podium. The return to racing under the lights and doubleheader in the desert brought with it drama from all directions. In the first of the 2 races in Diriyah, 2-time champion Jean-Eric Vergne celebrated having secured his 1000th point in Formula E by putting it on pole position. But could the Frenchman hold that position with Mitch Evans and reigning champion Jake Dennis behind him?
Let's go dueling in the desert. The 2024 Diriyah E-Prix is underway.
In a race that was largely dictated by attack mode strategy, it was a call from Dennis to deny his team's strategy order that gave him the lead.
We try and overcut Mitch.
Agreed, let's go.
Dennis takes the lead and takes the victory.
A return to the record-breaking form that won him the championship title. Dennis didn't just win the race though. He finished an almost record-breaking 13 seconds ahead of Jev in 2nd, who fought for his life to keep that position, showcasing another defensive driving masterclass. In the end, it was Nick Cassidy that once again rounded off the podium, flying up the order from P7. Strategy, confusion and frustration over team radio put the pressure on Mitch Evans, who made a mistake, losing not just the podium spot, but ended up finishing 5th behind his old teammate, Sam Bird. A drastic contrast to last season, and a performance that McLaren were soon to congratulate him on.
Yes, come on! Sam, it's a beautiful drive, mate. Well managed throughout. Very, very well done indeed. Proud of you.
Less than 24 hours later, and Nissan driver Oliver Rowland flew to pole position. A position he is all too familiar with in Formula E, but hadn't seen for over a season. But matching the efficiency of the 2 Jaguar-powered cars behind was too much of a challenge for the Nissan, meaning 3rd was the best Rowland could achieve. Still, a big confidence boost for his and the team's chances this season. In 2nd was Robin Frijns, who returned to his former home of Envision Racing in the off-season and hasn't taken too long at all to get back to his podium-achieving ways. But completing the hat-trick of podiums, the only driver to feature on all 3 so far with a win was Nick Cassidy. He leads the championship and has firmly painted the target on his back as the driver to beat. Jake Hughes and Stoffel Van Dorn completed the top 5. Another great show of pace and performance from McLaren, showing they're here to bring the fight to the others above. and further proof also that the DS Penske is a package that can challenge too. Could what was a 2 powertrain race last season now be the battle between 4 or even 5? We look to Sao Paulo this weekend to find out. It's on.
We always say that Formula E is the championship of unpredictability, and I think everything that you said in that little VT just then absolutely proves that.
Well, I mean, you say that, but I've got a conflicting thought now because yes, unpredictability, that stat, 7 drivers on the podium in 3 races, that is unpredictability at its finest.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is consistency in that because Nick Cassidy has been on all 3.
That's such a valid point,
So
yeah.
yes, it's unpredictable in terms of the competitiveness across the board,
Yep.
but drivers like Cassidy are really showing that consistency that, as we know, time and time again in Formula E,
It's key.
wins championships. And talking about championships, it's also worth mentioning that there's only one team that have had both drivers on the podium
Which
so far in
is?
3 races. Envision.
The boys in green.
Coming off the back of a title defence, they are reigning teams champions. This is the best way to defend that, by getting both drivers consistently on the podium, getting those points in, something that no other team has been able to do so far.
The other thing I wanted to chuck in there was I watched the Added Lap Show the other day where you were sat chatting with the one and only Mr. Jake Dennis, and he really took me by surprise that he name-dropped McLaren and Nissan as being 2 teams that have massively improved in the off-season, to the point that he sees them as a threat for podiums and wins this year. I don't often see the drivers doing that, and that means something serious to me.
I mean, especially this early on as well.
Yeah.
I think if you are a Jaguar-powered or Porsche-powered car, you are shaking in your little race boots because you've got the likes of Nissan, McLaren, DS Penske. They've all been up there, either on the podium or up there making up positions, getting good points, pole positions, all that stuff.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff that you want. That was drastically not the case this time last season. Porsche had dominated in the first opening races of last season. Jaguar were starting to show their potential, but as the season ended, we know how that works out. It was very much a 2 powertrain race, and as we said at the end of that VT there, not sure that's the case anymore. I think this could be maybe a 3 or 4 powertrain race.
Before we go too far into that, I want to take a moment and think back to that Porsche dominance last year, right? Pascal Wehrlein had an incredible opening start to the season. Then I think I'll be disappointed with kind of how it faded away leading up to the end of the year.
Yeah.
This season, he's had another pretty strong start, so it only felt right that we sent our very own Katy Fairman to go and catch up with him.
Well, I'm joined now by Tag Heuer Porsche's Pascal Wehrlein. And Pascal, before we get into talking through these amazing overtakes you did last year, firstly, how are you getting on here in Sao Paulo? How are you settling in?
Yeah, I think it's going quite well. I like the heat.
You do?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, I do. I prefer if it was a holiday, but yeah. The only time where it's really hot, it's in the race suit, but otherwise, yeah, I like coming here.
Perfect. Well, we've got the iPad here. Let's go through this. So, starting P18, which I know for you probably wasn't the ideal start, qualified in 15th and then had the 3rd place grid penalty for the contact with Buemi in Cape Town, but you still managed to make lots of magic happen. You've got both Neos in front of you here.
Yeah.
Long journey down to that turn 1. And I noticed as well there's a change in the tarmac going from here to turn 1. What kind of effect does that have for you as a driver?
The first part, I would say, doesn't have bad grip, but then as soon as it gets darker, I would say there is where the grip is changing quite a lot, and it's affecting obviously every lap, so not only at the start but also in the quali laps.
We had a bit of chaos up ahead with Mortara.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Was lucky there also to be in a good position. Like I didn't force myself into a situation where having contacts with other cars. I just waited and tried to find the gap.
Find the gap. There's always a gap for you racing drivers. So yeah, you already made it up to, I think it was P12 by the 3rd corner. So not bad going.
Yeah.
It's a very bumpy track, this.
It is. It is super bumpy, and there was one big bump on the straight from turn 3 to turn 4. I think where Antonio, was also Antonio, like flew and completely took off. That is like a huge jump with more than 200 kilometers per hour top speed.
Right, so we've got this through here. There was a little bit of contact with Nico Müller at front, and then Dennis as well, barging his way past. So you're down to P13, but still 5 places gained, and we're not even at the end of the first lap here.
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely a good first lap. That was a nice move
Stunning
there.
overtake, lovely. Will you often go back and watch a lot of your races? Like, have you watched this from last year? To
I'm
see
watching
what you did?
everything.
You're everything, all eyes everywhere.
Even the practice sessions.
This is one of the best overtaking opportunities, isn't it? This
Yeah,
straight
after
here.
the longest straight.
Yeah.
yeah, we have to do quite a lot of energy saving. And
Günther gets the position back, so he's not giving up. But
yeah, I remember I had a big fight with Max and with Jake in that race.
Yeah. Here's where you were mentioning with Antonio going off and wide turn 1 and having to stop. Did you ever think that before the lights went out that there'd be a chance that you could be running up in P4, or?
I think the target was to score points. To be running in P4 at a certain time was definitely above expectations. Shame the race was not red flagged after that.
Well, you've taken your attack mode and you've got a last kind of fight with Hughes here, but obviously with your attack mode and more power, you're soaring past there into P7 where you will finish. Enjoy this lap around here, it's a good one.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge, quite a different challenge. I think here braking and traction are the most important things on those tracks, and how the car absorbs the bumps, and very easy to overtake here. It's a bit of a different track than we usually are in Formula E, but I kind of like that challenge of having different tracks where different things matter on the car.
Brilliant. Well, one of the biggest takeaways from last year was the Jaguar powertrain 1, 2, 3. But do you think Porsche have got a good chance? Do you think you'll find yourself back up there with another trophy?
Yeah, we know that they're very strong on traction and that certain type of tracks suit their car pretty good. And probably this is one of the tracks where they have a lot of strength. Nevertheless, I think, being more energy limited and having to be super efficient in the race will probably benefit us a bit more. So I expect a close fight, and we will do everything to be ahead in the end.
Brilliant. Well, best of luck this weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.
And by the power of some YouTube magic, we are joined by Katy Fairman here in the flesh. And Katy, let's chat a little bit about your conversation with Pascal, because obviously his performance here last year was incredibly Formula E. That he had a fairly poor qualifying and then made up some points by just climbing his way through the grid.
He did. He started, qualified in 15th. He was in qualifying Group A, which was the most competitive of last year. Yeah. And then on top of that, had a 3-place grid penalty from the race before with a clash with Sebastian Buemi in Cape Town.
Not ideal.
Not ideal. So he started 18th, yet somehow, through the magic of his racecraft and that Porsche machine, made his way to 7th with the checkered flag. So not a bad performance.
Very, very good. And I'm going to do the most Saunders thing ever. Not to throw shade at Pascal Wehrlein.
As we're outside this garage.
I was going to say, although, just to give you a bit of context, guys, it's very hot, so I'm sure a bit of shade would be welcome at the moment by Pascal. He wasn't the only driver to do that last season.
No, he wasn't.
Lucas Di Grassi, back of the grid, P22 to P13, and I think that says a lot about what is possible on this circuit within the energy management thing, and the energy management thing like it's just a throwaway thing. The strategy being crucial here, especially this season, because we've got an energy deduction. There's even less to go around. I think that maybe scatters the pack a little bit. It makes it a bit more competitive. What do you reckon?
Yeah, very much so. And like mention of strategy, last year Pascal took his 2 attack modes right towards the end of the race. So he could have even been higher. He was best at 4th at one point, but that definitely played a part in it. So yeah, it's a massive strategy game. And like you say, so many overtaking opportunities, turn 1, turn 4. So I think we're in for another incredible race with lots of position changes.
Do you know what else? Mentioning attack mode, it's just reminded me, guys. I've just remembered this.
Yes,
there's an attack mode increase as well this year.
Ooh.
It's 8 minutes. It's almost double.
Ooh, that is spicy.
And think about that's extra speed, extra power, extra energy use with less energy available to begin with.
It's going to be chaos, isn't
That's
it? It's
amongst
going
the
to be
pigeons
wicked.
territory, isn't
That
it?
really is. Yeah.
Before we let you two get too overexcited about this,
Yeah, sorry.
kids. Let's go to Formula E's very own commentator Tom Brooks, who will tell you everything that you need to know about this incredible circuit.
So let's take a closer look at the Sao Paulo circuit in Brazil, the home of round 4 of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. The 2.9 kilometre long track starts with turns 1 and turn 2 after the start-finish straight. Turn 3 is where attack mode will be activated. Then we come on this long run down a back straight, separated by turns 4, 5 and 6, the chicane breaking it up, and then we head into the 90-degree right-handers of turn 7 and turn 8. Just the final sector left now, which is turn 9, a fast left-handed kink, into a 90-degree left of turn 10, then a 90-degree right of turn 11, bringing us onto the start-finish straight to complete the lap.
The Sambadrome really is an iconic Formula E circuit now, or it's certainly getting there, because the longest main straight of the season, bound to cause some drama, no?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, not only is it a great place to do some overtaking, but you think about the length of it, how much energy you're consuming. You know, in order to be competitive and not be overtaken or try to overtake, you've got to use that energy on the straight. And the difference between being the car leading and the car behind is absolutely astronomical. You know, I put my reporter hat on.
Let's go.
I embraced my inner Katy Fairman and walked around the paddock and thought, you know, let's get some answers to some big questions. And I spoke to a few drivers. I won't say who they are. Don't know why. It doesn't really matter. But it's the kind of the consensus is that the slipstream here is worth up to a second or maybe even 1.1 a lap behind the car in front.
That's huge.
That is absolutely massive. And you think about that combined with the fact that there's already an energy deduction for the maximum available usable energy for all drivers, there's extra use of attack mode, meaning that there's already more consumption being used in those higher power modes. That slipstream is going to go a long way. Final stat, just to round off this equation, kind of generally speaking, you take the least competitive powertrain and the most competitive powertrain, arguably there's somewhere between 3 and 6/10 potentially, or maybe even 1, 2, 3% across the whole race difference. If there's 1.1 seconds in the slipstream, completely gets rid of all of that loss that you have from being less competitive, which means we just scattered the grid here. We could see some massive grid climbs. We could see people winning from P10, P11, P12, like we saw in likes of Portland, Berlin last year. It's not going to be like any race we've seen this season so far. That's my bold claim.
Oh, I think you're right. We've seen or spoken to lots of drivers who have said that it's going to be nothing like we saw in Mexico or Diriyah. It's going to be back to the Formula E style racing that we saw a lot of last year, a lot of the, like you say, the slipstream and that peloton kind of style of racing, which I personally really enjoy watching. It makes for so many overtakes. You never know what's going to be around that next corner. So I'm so excited. I love it.
Buzzing.
I'm going to go rogue here and I want to chuck a question to you guys that's just come to mind.
Go on.
Is it going to be really helpful for teams to try and qualify more consistently? That if, for example, we're stood in front of the Porsche garage, if the two Porsches were to qualify near each other and were able to help during the race, is that an ideal setup for the teams, or does it not matter so much about being together?
I think it's very track specific, isn't it? You know, like in Mexico and Diriyah, absolutely, that qualifying is very important. So if you can kind of work together as a team, it makes a big difference. Here, Misano, Shanghai, Portland, you know, big circuits, long circuits, qualifying isn't going to be that important because you don't really want to be that high up there. Obviously, having a teammate there,
having them near together,
is going to be useful to block drivers or be a bit of a nuisance, absolutely. But that's very hard to achieve because qualifying, you know, it really separates drivers very quickly. You know, we see how quickly someone who is very good at one lap pace can just suddenly not get into the duel.
Listening to Nick Cassidy talk about it after Diriyah and his win, he said that he thinks there's 16 drivers in this pit lane here that could be challenging for wins, for pole positions, all that good stuff.
Wow.
So it really is anybody's game, and I'm so excited to see it all pan out.
If you have two of the same team, two drivers from the same team in the same qualifying group, could that be an advantage? Because then you mentioned how powerful that slipstream is. If you can sort each other out with the slipstream on the straight around quali, maybe that would be beneficial.
The slipstream though, because of this being a very not downforce essential track, you're not really gaining that much time. It's more about a time versus energy efficiency.
Okay.
So one lap pace probably doesn't make as much of a difference. But how hard is that though? You've got 4 chances of getting out the qualifying groups and you want both your drivers to be able to do it. I mean, that's the perfect day for a team, isn't it?
Okay, thank you so much for joining us, Katie. We will see you later on, I am sure. And for now, we've been talking about this track, putting all of our theories to the test, but how about we hear it from some of the drivers who will actually be taking it on?
Super excited. São Paulo E-Prix, of course, is my favorite. It's my home race. All my friends, family, everybody's there. Last season was a great event, and this year has everything to actually be much better than last year. It is very important to have a race in Brazil. We have 2 Brazilian drivers in the series. Brazilians in general, they are a big fan of motorsport.
I think it was a great event last year. I've never been to Brazil, so I was really looking forward to going there. I spoke to Lucas a little bit about it, and obviously he bigs it up massively. And it didn't disappoint last year. I think the race was very good. We had both cars in the points from a team's point of view, so hopefully something similar when we go there.
Last year was pretty hot there, which was quite a tough race in terms of the heat, but the fans were great. The circuit was good fun, very challenging, so I think really looking forward to getting back there and seeing what we can do.
It's a great location. The track is really, really cool and very strategic to race there because the slipstream plays a big impact on your race strategy. It's all about the confidence you have, the connection you have with your car to decelerate the car from high speed, and that's where you make a lot of the difference.
And here comes Cassidy for the lead. Nick Cassidy hits the
front.
The track itself was designed for action. We have the longest straight in the calendar, 780 meters, almost 800 meters. The cars, they reach nearly 280 kph, and there's a lot of slipstream. So the main straight, which is where the Samba Avenue is the place to get the best action.
And here comes Bird. Bird on Jean-Eric Verne into turn one, and he's through.
Well, it's quite a long straight and a lot of straight line braking, and then the track's quite bumpy out the back, so I would say it's quite challenging on all aspects. It's generally, most of the corners are quite low speed.
And Evans goes to the inside, and Evans takes the lead, does he?
Plenty of overtaking, no issue there. A lot of slow speed apexes, so braking stability, good traction, less about sort of high speed, minimum speed balance. So yeah, you need a lot of confidence in the brakes in Sao Paulo.
Remember last year, so the temperatures were quite warm, but you had like cold wind. That made it actually quite complicated in terms of like tire management for the temperatures. Also in terms of energy, was also quite difficult, especially during the races, because the straights were quite long. Slipstreaming was playing quite a big role, and I would say also in terms of bumpiness, you had some corners where the track was actually quite bumpy. So obviously riding those bumps like pretty good, you know, was quite important.
For the race, it's all about applying the right strategy to choose the right moment when to attack and as well when to save your energy.
It's about $1 million for the lead up at the front. Van Dorn in the lead.
I think you'll see plenty of overtaking. I think you'll see plenty of slipstreaming. I don't think the fans will be shortchanged at all in that regard. And for us in the cockpit, it will be a race of checking the mirrors and a race of checking the energy on the dash.
That says it all, doesn't it? Jake Hughes
100%.
could not have summed that out better in terms of getting excitement for the race.
Yeah.
Lots of overtaking, going to be hard for them in the cockpit, checking their mirrors, all about the strategy and the slipstream. He summed it up absolutely perfectly. But
better than we could.
The big question is, which driver will be on the top of that podium?
Predictions time. Whoop, whoop.
Oh, it's hard, isn't it?
I want to go first.
You go
I want to
first.
take the obvious one. I like to be right with these.
Okay.
I think Jag and Envision. When you look at what happened here last year, right? It was a Jag, Envision, Jag podium. They've had a really, really strong start to the season. It was Mitch Evans and then Nick Cassidy. Now they're both together at Jag. Mitch is going to want to bounce back from a tougher few first races. I'm excited to see what they could do this weekend.
It's very, they have the target on their back, don't they? Because of how good that powertrain was last season. It isn't, I just don't think it's going to be the same this time around. I think especially if they qualify well, because I think really the last place you actually want to start this race from, apart from the getting the points, is pole position. Because you're going to be out there in front, consuming, while others behind are just saving, ready to pounce on you, probably maybe from the halfway stage, if not even earlier.
Okay.
You know, that strategy is so crucial, and that is great news for people like ERT, for people like Nissan, for McLaren, for even Mahindra and Abt. This just helps them be more competitive.
Throw up a few surprises.
Yeah, so my prediction, I guess, less around specific teams or drivers, but about the race itself.
Okay.
As I mentioned it a bit earlier, I do think this race is going to resemble something closer to Berlin and Portland last year, where it was just chaos.
Yes.
More than what we've seen so far this season, when it's just been about almost flat out racing, which, you know, it sounds like the thing you want, but that's not Formula E. Formula E is all about that energy management, it's all about that strategy, and that is what we're going to see this weekend.
Hey, I'm excited.
I'm pumped, honestly, I'm very pumped. Yeah, great circuit, super fast, big long straights, loads of overtaking opportunities. The strategy is what's going to separate anyone. And are we going to see that as early as qualifying? Do you even want to be in the top 8? Ooh. Who knows? I'm just throwing stuff out there. You guys just pick what you want from it. But yeah, that's my prediction.
Let us know in the comments what you think we are going to see this weekend, because we have all of our predictions. We've had our say, but now it's time for the real action to get underway. Make sure you head to the Formula E website to see where you can watch along with everything where you are, and we'll be bringing you all of the updates across our social media across the weekend, because season 10, it's on.
These streets normally belong to carnival floats, but now they belong to us. Our latest battles takes place on the streets of São Paulo. 3 long straights means overtakes are constant. Getting ahead means nothing, but staying ahead means everything.